Look at how XRP whales have started selling like crazy. The last time XRP whales sold this hard, it was precisely to mark a peak, and then we saw a huge depreciation in XRP's price. We're now at a point in Ripple's price where its value might be doomed to fall, in a moment when Bitcoin's flow is experiencing one of its worst value outflows ever. Investors are also selling their Bitcoin, forecasting a drop across the cryptocurrency market. Let's take a look. We're going to analyze this chart, which shows us how whales are currently selling off all their XRP holdings at full speed. Down here, you can see a histogram that turns green when XRP whales are buying and red when whales are selling. In the end, what we're looking at is the flow, positive in green, negative in red. Let's check the historical data. Since before September 2022, we've been seeing this price range. It's hard to spot at first, but honestly, there was an upward trend in XRP's price during the time whales were buying the asset. Then we entered a new period where XRP stalled. It didn't keep going up. Instead, it moved sideways. And this sideways action, sometimes even with a slight downtrend, was used by institutions at that moment to sell their XRP. Here they bought while the price was rising, and here they sold when the price was showing a bearish, or if we're being generous, a flat trend. Now, let's analyze the next key moment and notice how, during this big rally in XRP's price, whales once again nailed it by buying XRP at a crucial moment. You just have to see how this became the turning point where XRP's price exploded upward. Now, let's look at the most recent activity. After the price exploded here, we started to see whales selling again. From this point onward, we can say the whales began their selling, and as the price climbed to higher levels, their selling intensified, just as you can see in the histogram. And when the whales were already heavily sold, notice how it just happened to be at that extreme market price level, where from that point on, XRP's price collapsed. That said, let's move to the next point of interest, right here, where in this phase, as you can see, institutions were buying. And during this very same price phase, what we're looking at was an accumulation process aimed at pushing the price higher. And once again, the whales got it right. It's like these damn whales never miss. Now, if we analyze the most recent sector, like it's Formula 1, we can see whales here have started selling again. And this selling could be accompanied, why not, by a market trap. It's entirely possible, especially considering that the last strong selling we saw here in this histogram was followed by a big crash. So what many people might expect, following this analysis, which I'm about to criticize for being ridiculously simplistic, is that the XRP fall is inevitable. And this is the kind of analysis we'll later contrast with the traditional chart to assess how much sense it really makes to be that negative as the blockchain analysis of XRP suggests. And of course, if we combine this with the inflow-outflow analysis of Bitcoin's price, in other words, the money going in versus the money going out of Bitcoin, we see that right now Bitcoin is being sold from BlackRock's ETF. This is capital leaving. Basically, institutional traders now seem to be losing confidence in a positive outlook for Bitcoin's market as they're exiting BlackRock's ETF. But really, do you think this indicator alone is worth treating like some almighty god that never gets it wrong? Especially when paired with XRP whale flow analysis? Let's take a closer look. In the red histogram, we see when investors in BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF are exiting. Notice how it also matches when Bitcoin's price is at a low. You'll need a good zoom here to see the yellow line. That's Bitcoin's price. It's at a low and boom, they're exiting the ETF. Here again, we see a large exit from the ETF, and if you look at the yellow chart, it's another low. In other words, they're selling like idiots here. Here we could say they sold well, congrats. But here they sold like idiots, here they sold like bigger idiots, and here they sold like the biggest idiots ever. And to be fair, during distribution, we have to say they actually sold pretty well. But look how here they sell like amateurs, then sell like the biggest amateurs ever, and now everyone is asking themselves, should I pay attention to this? Come on, only a fool wouldn't see it. Don't you see that BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF is now losing Bitcoin? That there are outflows? Don't you see how the price is going to crash? Well, here I've just shown you in a visual and completely objective way why you can't obey what a chart tells you in such a simplistic manner. That's why it's so dangerous to listen to certain YouTube channels where they analyze blockchain charts when these so-called analysts have no clue how markets actually move. You know racehorses when they put those side blinders on them so they can only look straight ahead? Well, that's exactly what they do. They have no context due to their lack of knowledge, so they analyze something in such a poor way that the only thing they achieve is confusion and misinformation for their audience. And this, my friends, is dangerous and it needs to stop. Now, let's look at Bitcoin's daily chart. Notice the macro bullish trend we're seeing in its price, and allow me to be a bit skeptical by saying maybe you have to be incredibly brave or downright reckless to, after such a huge rally in Bitcoin's price, think that right now, at the very top, is when Bitcoin and crypto should start falling just because whales have started selling. I'm not saying it's impossible, of course, but it's very similar to what happens with the US indexes. You already know what happens to the trader who tries to short the S&P 500. Let's switch to the weekly chart. I'll ask you, what do you think happens to the trader who tries to bring down the S&P 500, who tries to short it? Well, I think that trader, that investor has done terribly, because the trader or investor who has gone long term has visually and apparently done much better. So I ask you, to what extent extent is it worth trying to be the smart guy at these price levels, saying, no, I know the price is going to fall now. We're in a massive bullish trend. And here you are saying you can call the exact moment the US indexes are going to crash? Look at me, I'm a genius. Week after week, we see the same thing. Someone comes out and says this indicator is telling us the market is going to collapse, spreading fear. And I believe in the vast majority of cases, every single time this trader has tried to call the market's top, they've been wrong.
So if we stick to a basic, simple statistic, I'll ask you again with Bitcoin's chart open. How prudent is it right here, after such a massive bullish trend, to say, no, now's the time we're going to start a bear market, a big correction? I'm not saying a correction won't happen eventually. The nature of crypto is to have strong, deep corrections. Of course we'll have one. But the big difference is that trying to nail the exact timing of when it will come is pure madness. Let others gamble with their money. We're not going to gamble with ours. And honestly, if we're so positive about US indexes today, openly optimistic about them, why should we think any differently about crypto? Now, if we go to the 4-hour chart, we can see what's been happening. A strong bullish impulse, a correction, a pause, and very recently, notice how we had a black swan event that propelled Bitcoin's price into a big rally. After that black swan, I'll say it again. It's not prudent, I'm not saying impossible, but it's not prudent to claim that the market is going to fall no matter what, just because the blockchain says so or because whales supposedly never get it wrong. Here's the XRP chart. We've been watching how after a bullish impulse, XRP held its ground here, went through an accumulation phase, and then produced a black swan breakout, which of course is positive. What else is positive for XRP? After that major breakout, we saw a bearish push and a corrective pullback, which also formed part of a micro accumulation phase that is now broken strongly to the upside. Looking at this more closely, remember, we're talking about XRP. And I'll tell you what I told the Crypto Insight Premium members this morning. Since early today, we've been expecting short-term drops in the crypto market. It makes sense that in the immediate short term, cryptos could fall, and that's where we'll look for intraday trading entries. But what I'm saying is, we might just be in a pause right now. And if this pause confirms and we start breaking structures, I can't see who's going to stop crypto. Here's MicroStrategy's chart. It came from an accumulation phase, produced a black swan, followed by a strong rally, and then price continued in a bullish channel. That channel created a market trap over a defense zone we were watching closely, and it ended up confirming the trap. Price then recovered the zone with a retest, something of immense value, and from there, it has already taken off. It's true that we're correcting right now, but if the market suddenly decides to gain bullish traction, the upward move we could see in crypto, and also in US indexes, could be very strong. Think about this. If all these whales betting on the short side get wiped out, what could happen? Look, the whales get taken out, and here's what happened. They get taken out again, and here's what happened. We could list plenty of times when this has occurred. When a whale bleeds, when a river runs red, assuming whales even swim in rivers, but I think you get my point. See, this chart by itself doesn't tell us a damn thing. That's something I want to make very clear. What we're evaluating here is the consequence of trapping and wiping out a group of whales. And if you think analyzing XRP whale blockchain data means there's a single black hand controlling everything, like some all-powerful entity, I have to tell you, you're gravely mistaken. In financial markets, there are countless institutions, each with completely different roles and interests, all operating together in the markets. Of course, that doesn't mean we're not going to ignore what's happening now, but as long as the charts honestly and transparently don't give us a clear warning signal, we'll remain positive. If over time we saw specific behavior in Bitcoin's and XRP's price, then we'd talk and consider these blockchain charts, but as of today, my message is for everyone to stay calm. Now tell me, what do you think about all this? Do you believe these whales will actually push Bitcoin's and XRP's price lower? Leave your opinion in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this high-value content, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so YouTube notifies you of future uploads. A big hug, and see you next time.